welcome to On the Same Page. This is Brenna Butler, and with me, as always, is Casey Bond. Hi, Casey. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
I am so jealous of Casey today because do you see this stack? And do you see this stack? Sorry, guys, but I'm kind of an audiobook Kindle kind of girl, but my Casey likes it traditional.
No, actually, I read on a Kindle, but if I love the book, then I order the hardback.
Yeah, just way more than
So I
me.
love these, so yay.
Well, we do have a lot of great books in store for you this time, including the first one that we're going to talk about, which I've got my notes on the wrong page, so I'm going to have to flip inconspicuously. Sherwood by Megan Spooner.
I love the cover.
I did too, and this picture does not do it justice. The actual cover has this kind of pretty metallic sheen to it, and it has a lovely formatting on the inside. There's some kind of leaves. Ugh, I can't even speak today. Got some leaves within the pages and some darkened pages and that kind of thing at the chapter beginning. So we always like good formatting. In this book, it is a retelling of Robin Hood in which Robin dies. And that is not a spoiler. That happens within the first few chapters of the book. Robin dies. Will Scarlet is in trouble. You can see some of the formatting here on the pages a little bit. Will Scarlet is in trouble, and Maid Marian goes to try to help him. And through a series of events, she ends up donning Robin's hood and is mistaken for Robin.
And sort of resurrects him. And people believe it's Robin's ghosts that are coming to help him. There's the Sheriff of Nottingham, the notorious sheriff, is doing bad things. And this sort of gives the people hope. And so nobody suspects that it's not Robin.
They don't know. And she has he kind of taught her with the bow and arrow. So she has the skills to back it up. And she is brave as can be. I love this heroine in this book.
Yes, and it's an interesting storyline as far as, we were talking right before the show about her grief and the way she expresses it and feels it. It's very, very poignant. I felt like it was written really well.
Yes. That grief feels very real, even though it's a high fantasy book, of course. You can tell she has so much love for Robin. And that loss, of course, Gisborne, who is the kind of the villain, in at least the first part of the book, is he's kind of the villain of the series. He's the right hand of the Sheriff of Nottingham, and he kind of blurts it out to her that Robin is dead, and you just feel that gut punch when that happens.
And he inherits Locksley's land and estate, and hopes to inherit his lady. I mean, it's.
We were talking before, and I said one of the coolest lines was he came calling on her early on, and she didn't want to see him because she didn't want anything to do with him. And she said, lie and say I spend all day embroidering daisies on handkerchiefs. And I was like, oh, that is hilarious, because that is so not this character.
It's like the I'm washing my hair.
Excuse
of yesteryear.
Daisies on handkerchiefs.
It's great.
But great novel. Very big detour at the end of it. The end felt very epic to me, though. The last few chapters are almost seem like a classic tale.
Yes, I loved it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
I've also read Hunted by Megan Spooner. It's a very good book as well.
That's Beauty and the Beast.
It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a good spin on it as well. She's just a very good storyteller. I mean, her stories are, I don't know, they're well paced and they're just vivid to me as far as being able to picture everything she's telling you about. So I just enjoy her writing style.
Yeah, this one would be one that I'd recommend as well. Very well. I saw someone online and mentioned that her books seem like classics when you read them, and I think that's very true. The language in them feels very old, and very great. I did listen to a little bit of this in audiobook. Not the whole thing, but a little bit of it in audiobook, and the narrator on this is excellent as well.
Nice.
Kind of puts you in that spirit.
That's good. A good narrator is important. The next book that I would like to talk about is called Ash Princess.
You have that here.
I don't have that one.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get it in time, but I do have it.
In the whole big stack of books.
I know.
It's not there,
I know.
but it's on screen.
It's such a pretty cover, though. Look at basically, this is like a kingdom in peril, and Theodosio is 6 years old when her mother, the Fire Queen, is killed in front of her.
Okay.
And this Kaiser basically takes her land and keeps her a prisoner in the palace. And her people are made to mine these gems that are magical to those who can wield them. And so they keep them away from her, obviously. And she's basically, enslaved in her own home. And it's the treatment of these people is just abhorrent. It's just disgusting. But she's made to do a very horrific act to one of her, she's made to put somebody to death. And it's one of her own people. And that's sort of a turning point for her. And it's the point where she says enough. And it's the point where she decides she's going to fight back. And it's just beautiful, the people that come out of the woodwork to help her and that realize that everything that's been done to her is just wrong and that they're going to stand behind her too. So it's just a very well-written story. I just really enjoyed the scheming at court and the different things. It's very cringy at times. It's very vivid what she paints as far as, some of the things that they do, but a very, very good book. I really enjoyed it. There are also 2 other books in the series, Lady Smoke and Ember Queen. So I'm looking forward.
Very good things about that series.
Yeah, it's really good.
The next one I read was called Beautiful by Juliette Marillier. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad. I saw a couple different pronunciations for the last name, and I think that's how she goes by. I saw the author had posted at one time, Marillier. And it is based on a fairy tale called East of the Sun, West of the Moon. Now, I had never heard that fairy tale before. I think it's maybe a Nordic tale. Don't quote me on that. I'm not real sure. But if you have read the tale, you're going to know the names and see the huge twist that Brenna did not see coming. So you have Huld, who is a princess. She's never left her castle on the Glass Mountain. And her tutor is a talking polar bear.
Nice.
It's just kind of neat. She has a cruel mother who's queen of the land. And the polar bear returns every 3 years and then he disappears. Well, through a series of events, she finds out things aren't quite what she seems. The polar bear is really a human, and the queen has him under the spell where he turns into this polar bear, and he's actually forced to marry Huld. And she doesn't know this is going on until he comes back and he has to marry her.
Wow.
And so a lot of things happen, and Huld really has to be pushed out of her shell, pushed into making things right. I get the feeling, I hadn't read the fairy tale before, but I get the feeling that the princess is probably one of the villains in the fairy tale. And this is kind of a twist on it, telling her story that she just kind of happened into the situation, didn't really know anything about it, and then her story afterwards, how she made things right. And so I found her to be very brave. When she finally leaves the Glass Mountain, after things unfold, she's forced to leave to fight another evil. And when she's forced to leave, you find out that she's not what you think she is. She's not a typical princess, and she has no idea that she's not a typical princess because she's never left the Glass Mountain before. So you kind of see that through her eyes.
Nice.
You find out what she really is. So it's a lot of twists and turns, especially if you've not read that fairy tale before. It was one that I really, really liked. This one was available on Audible as an Audible exclusive.
That's awesome. I'm going to talk about The Beholder by Anna Bright. This was a really neat retelling of Cinderella, and something that I didn't really expect. The cover is stunning, is it not? So the Beholder is her ship. And basically what happens in this reimagining of Cinderella is that Princess Sela, her stepmother, forces her to basically take a voyage to find her prince. And so, but there's a lot of scheming going on. She believes that perhaps the stepmother is poisoning her father and attempting to take over the kingdom, and basically sends her on this trip to get rid of her. So she's trying to find the prince that will not make her miserable, but also get back as quickly as she can. And there are magical elements to the story. So there's a book that her godmother speaks to her through along the journey,
neat.
and she kind of tries to guide her. And there's a mystery surrounding her crew and the captain themselves, and there's different. She goes to two kingdoms in the first book. There are going to be others. I'm not sure what the titles are at this point, but it's just a lot of scheming that goes on those courts because they don't trust her stepmother, and so she's kind of tossed in this. It's like she's in the ocean and the waves are kind of beating down on her, but she's just got a great spirit, and I really, really enjoyed the book. So, highly recommend.
Awesome. The next book I have on my list is Bitter Falls. Bitter Falls is the fourth book in the Stillhouse Lake series. There's also Stillhouse Lake, Kilman Creek, and Wolf Hunter River. We again see Gwen Proctor, who's the ex-wife of a serial murderer. And murder happens all around Gwen. She always gets stuck in the middle of it. But she's a tenacious mother that is always working to keep her kids safe. And I just love that about these books.
Yes.
At this point, the town's most villainous citizens decide that Gwen isn't good for their community. They're the worst of the worst, and they decide she's the bad one and she's got to go. And so among these looming threats, she has to kind of navigate this, to what she's going to do and how she's going to keep her kids safe. And there's also a cult that comes into play, a lot of scenes within this cult that's nearby. Nonstop thrillers, snipers, small town mafia, brainwashing cults, you name it, it's all in Bitter Falls. And that's by Rachel Kane. I also wanted to say that Rachel Kane is a pen name for Roxanne Conrad. Roxanne, if you do not follow her on Twitter, you should. Just an inspiring person. She is currently going through her own real life trials with a deadly disease, and just the tremendous nature of this woman. She is a force to be reckoned with. And if you need help getting your priorities straight or finding inspiration, seek Rachel Kane out, because she's turning out books left and right still, and in the midst of going through all this.
It's amazing.
And she's just an amazing person.
Huge testament to the human spirit right there.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay, next I'm going to talk about the Bone Houses. And I wasn't sure what to
it's a skull. I was looking at this earlier, and I didn't realize. I thought it was just a flourished design. I didn't realize it was a skull. Oh my goodness!
This book is steeped in like Celtic lore, and so it takes place in this small village where 17-year-old Aderin has taken over her father's business. He's a grave digger, and he raised her from a young age to dig graves with him. She takes care of her whole household, but her father goes into the forest and does not come back. And so she's going to take over the family business. Well, the problem is business is bad for a grave digger when the dead don't stay dead. So these people, like the dead, start raising.
Okay.
And so she goes into the forest searching for a magic cauldron that is the source. She believes that it's broken and it's spilling out its magic and it's causing the dead to rise.
Okay.
So she gets the help of a cartographer named Ellis, who he wants to go. He's got his own motives. I'm not going to say what those are, but he goes into the forest with her, and it's just kind of gut-wrenching at times because they see her dad, but he's not alive anymore. So it's kind of a moral question of, do you put the dead back where they belong, or do you save the one you love? Or
Oh, wow.
But it's a really, really good story. It gave me vibes of, if you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, it gave me vibes of Feyre, to be honest. Like, she's really tough. She takes care of her family. She's got really solid values, and she's not afraid to take an axe to a corpse if it comes at her the wrong way. So it's
Strong
really good.
women. We love the strong women.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. The next one I was going to talk about is The Fairy Games by Michelle Maddow. Now, Michelle has created this whole universe called the Dark World. And this is actually the third series within the Dark World, which is kind of an overarching story in itself. So Fairy Games is the first in the third new series. Fairy Games also out now is book 2, The Fairy Pawn, 3, Fairy Mates, 4, The Fairy Wand. It just came out in February, and she's got a 5th book, The Fairy Plague, planned for early summer 2020.
Nice.
So these were some that I mentioned before with the Angel Trials, which was the previous series in the Dark World universe. The Fairy Games ones, always wait until they're all out until I start reading. But I was super tempted. I needed my Michelle Maddow. So I picked up the Fairy Games. The Fairy Games picks up at the end of the Angel Trials series. There was a baby born. And so the Fairy Games follows that baby who is now a young adult. And her name is Selena, and Selena Pierce, and she lives on the magical island of Avalon. And she's been told by her adoptive parents, who are from the first series, the Vampire Wish series, she's been told by her adoptive parents that it's too dangerous for her to ever leave Avalon. And she has no powers. Everybody on Avalon's magical except for her. And she's kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
So for her birthday, her best friend, who is a witch, performs a spell that makes them look like each other.
Oh.
And she's already planned to go visit her mother in Los Angeles. So Selena gets to go in her stead and leave and go to Los Angeles. Well, of course, there are things hunting her outside of Avalon. And one such thing actually finds her. He is a hot young thing, and she is so into him. And she meets up with him, and he pushes her to a fountain that's a magical portal. And so she's transported into the fairy world in the midst of the beginning of the annual Fairy Games, which is more like a Hunger Games style tournament where half-blood fairies compete. And she is a half-blood. She doesn't know this. We all know it if we read the Angel Trials, but she is a half-blood fairy. The Roman gods each choose what half-blood they want to sponsor for the games, and she gets a sponsor that surprises everybody because he's not sponsored anybody in millennia.
Wow.
And so it's a fight to the death, and the Fairy Games opens with her being selected, falling into this world, and you actually see the first challenge of the Fairy Games to be continued in the next books.
I love
it. So if
it.
you like cliffhanger books, Michelle Maddow is for you. Every book is a huge cliffhanger, and you can't wait to pick up the next one. Fast-paced action, romance. I'm so into this Dark World universe in these series. Fairy Games did not disappoint.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to have to pick that one up. The next one I read is The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. And the cover is beautiful. I mean, and it's stunning too. It's got the raised. If you look at the actual cover, it's got the raised and embossed image. It's so pretty. Basically, the book.
She's petting it.
Do
you see this?
I love it. I have to read you the first 2 lines because these 2 lines hooked me, and it's very rare that I'm like, whoa. So the first 2 lines are, "They've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will." So that hooked me, and I was like, yes, girl. So I'm like turning pages left and right. But basically, Alessandra has an option to go and attempt to woo the Shadow King in her kingdom, and he's comprised of shadows, and her plan is to woo him, to marry him, to kill him, and take his kingdom and throne.
That's the plan.
Well, there are other people who also would like to have him dead, and that's just going to ruin her plan if she can't marry him first. So she's kind of protecting him, and they sort of become a force to be reckoned with together because she is very scheming. I love how clever and scheming this woman is. She wants that throne. But it's very great. They sort of eventually develop a respect and then a love for one another. And it's just a beautifully written story and one of the most clever books I've ever read. I loved every word of it from the beginning to the end.
I've got to tell you, I've looked at this one a few different times. And I'm probably going to
Callias is the Shadow King's name, and he is a force to behold. He's great.
Nice.
The 2 of them together are just perfect. Alessandra and Callias will go down in history on my bookshelf.
Nice. Okay. Well, the next one I read was Once Upon a Short Story by A.G. Marshall. And this is a series of 5 short stories. All of them are twists on well-known fairy tales. But perhaps the best part of this book are the author's notes. So at the beginning, she explains that she was having a really hard time finishing her work in progress. And we've all been there. And so she decided one day to just challenge herself to take a fairy tale every month or couple of months and flip it on its head, just as a writing exercise to get her out of this funk. And that would also give her something that she could give to her fan club and her newsletter subscribers. So that's what she did. And she finally came up with this. Some of them have been so popular that she's actually turned them into novels. But it just got her out being creative, and that's something I just loved. And with each story, she also writes her notes, what was kind of going through her head when she did this, and what she maybe tried that didn't work, and that kind of thing. So I just love seeing that little inside scoop of the author. The Grandmother with the Enormous Eyes was a little Red Riding Hood twist. The grandmother has something in common with the wolf. I love this. This was probably my favorite one of the stories. A Gown of Spider Silk. Cinderella makes a deal with spiders, and
Nice.
you have some experience with spiders making clothing, but they actually help her meet the prince, and it's a really cool twist. The Bruised Princess is a retelling of The Princess and the Pea. It does deal with domestic violence.
Oh, wow.
And that's where she gets her bruising, but she goes in and does the test of sleeping on the mattresses with pea inside, and ultimately wins it because she's bruised and she's the only one.
You can feel it because she's bruised?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And kind of as a contrast to the physical abuse the princess has had, or the girl has had when she comes in to do the test to become the princess, the prince has some very real emotional abuse going on with him.
Wow.
And so it's kind of a neat, unique twist on that. The Dwarf Ring, which is a twist on Snow White, where the dwarves are the evil ones, and the evil queen is good and trying to rescue everybody. that was a really kind of cool twist on that. And The Curse of Gold, which is kind of a mashing of Rumpelstiltskin and King Midas.
Neat.
So a lot of really unique short stories based on some fairy
Love
tales we all know.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
I don't know why, but I always loved that story when I was a kid.
Oh, it's so unique.
It's great.
Yeah.
So that's neat.
One that sticks
That's
with
one
ya.
I might have to pick up. That's awesome.
Yeah. I really like that one.
That's great. Well, the last book that I read this month is one I saw on Instagram, and it's called The Seventh Son by, I don't know if it's Lonnie, I'm going to say Lonnie Forbes. It may be Lainey. I think it's Lonnie Forbes. I'm going to go with that. So if I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. But this is a very unique book. I've never read a book that is set in Mesoamerica. So it's drenched in Mayan and Aztec lore. And it starts kind of with a bang. The Lord of the Sun dies, and so his wife has to take her life to go to the underworld with him. And so it leaves their son to take his place, and he's got to find a wife. So, I mean, he's immediately like, your father's dead, your mother's getting ready to kill herself, and by the way, you've got to raise the son. So it's really fast-paced in the beginning, and so he calls for 6 noble daughters to come and see which one he would like to be his wife, and each of them has sort of like magical powers and is under a different one of their gods, is basically like sponsored them, or not really sponsored them, but just I guess blessed them with a gift.
Okay.
So Mayana is one of the princesses, and her affinity is sort of with water. She has power with water. And there are some that have like power with animals and nature, and one thing she can't stand is for animals to be harmed, so that's a problem in her culture because they do a lot of animal sacrifices.
Okay.
And she also learns that if she's not picked to be queen, she is going to be sacrificed along with the other girls who don't make it.
Oh.
So she has a huge stake in becoming this man's wife, even though, everybody tries, there's a lot of the things you would expect to see when you enter this competition. There's cattiness and, people sticking scorpions in your bed, and
Yikes.
These chicks are ruthless. So, but it's just really beautiful. There's a lot of court drama going on behind his back that he doesn't realize from people he should trust, that are trying to make him feel like the apocalypse is going to happen and that he's not doing his part as this new sun god to help their kingdom. And ultimately, the ending is just wow. They learned that a lot of things that they had thought for years and that have been an ingrained part of their culture and their beliefs is wrong. And it's going to be up to them to bring that back to the people and see if they accept it. So it's very good. I mean, I felt like she did really good with building their relationship. The ending is just huge. I felt like the world building in this book is just phenomenal. Like I can picture, you see on the Discovery Channel, you see the pictures of the big headdresses.
Yeah.
She describes those so perfectly. And the animals are a big part of the book. It's just really unique. I really enjoyed it. So I felt like she did a great job. I'll definitely be looking for the next book because it's not a standalone. So I can't wait.
Awesome.
Highly recommend it.
Well, do you have any more books before I move on?
No, you go ahead.
Well, I haven't read this one.
I've seen it. So.
I haven't read this one yet. I got it. Yeah. It arrived at my house yesterday late, so I have not yet had a chance to delve into it. It's called What Rachel Did by Kelly Martin.
Yeah.
We've been so excited for this book, middle grade ghost story, and I can't wait to delve into it. If you are local to the area, I'm also receiving a hardback edition that will be donated to Buzzard Library in Gallipolis. So
nice.
If you want to go ahead and pick it up, or if you want to wait until it hits the library, you'll be able to do that as well. We've got a few author events coming up.
Yep.
I know I'm going to be at HerdCon this weekend, March 14th, at Marshall University in the Student Center. Casey, you're coming up on Roanoke. Oh,
I'm coming up on ApolloCon in a couple of weeks. It has not been canceled. I know there's some concerns about traveling with the coronavirus and different things, but they're taking drastic measures. Jennifer Armentrout is the one who puts this event on. She's bought hand sanitizer for every author and every attendee. The hotels are putting the hand sanitizers all around. They've taken other measures. I just really feel a lot of respect. I can't imagine how stressful it is to host an event in a time where there's something like this happening. And some people have obviously elected not to attend and sign, but I'm looking very much forward to it and applaud Jen for everything she's done. And I hope to see some folks in March 26th through the 29th in DC. And then the following weekend, April the 4th, I will be in Roanoke, Virginia at the Roanoke Author Invasion.
I love the Roanoke Author
Invasion.
I know,
I'm going to miss you.
I'm heartbroken that I can't go this year, but due to some family commitments, but go if you can.
And it's a free event. Roanoke is free, and it requires a ticket from Eventbrite, but it's free. It's good for the whole family. All ages can attend. It's very, very nicely run. It's just a day of fun and books, so you can't beat that. And I hope you can road trip it because that's the best.
4 hours from Southern Ohio, West Virginia. So awesome. Yes. So I think that is all for us for this time. Happy reading, and we'll see you next time.